Welcome along, one and all. You join us on a night filled with pure adrenaline, that buzz that can only mean one thing. We are ready to go racing again. PSGL is back. We are watching the return of PSF3 for season 38 of PSGL. I'm also very pleased to say that your commentary lineup has been retained for this season with myself, Daka, and as we are in spooky season, we have a man synonymous with this time of year. It is Ghost. How are you, my friend?
Oh, indeed. I don't plan on giving any spooks in this stream, but we'll see. Maybe the drivers can cover that for us. No, I'm doing well. It's been a good few weeks off. I can proudly say we had two races between all the commentators in PSGL or anyone that could make it on the day, and I won both of them. So clearly PSF3 is the best. And if you're not watching, then, well, what can I say? But yeah, it's it's good to be back, Daka.
Yes, maybe just hold off on the subtle trash talk to our fellow commentators, though. Let's get into the action out on the circuit. Of course, as we are in a new season, we have a mix of returning faces and newcomers to the tier. We are on board with one of them now, Galaxy Slayer, who is navigating the first sector. Here in Australia, I know we're a bit late getting onto it, but Ghost, at least for 2/3 of this lap, let's see how he gets on.
Indeed. Well, he's in sector 2 at the moment, flies his way through that right-hander, very tricky corner to get right. You go slightly too wide and it's straight away lap over, and now down towards the very difficult turn 9-10 section, all the way down this straight. There used to be a chicane here, but no longer. Into turn 9, throws the car through, over the curb on turn 10. You can really cut the whole curb, and if you don't, you lose a ton of time. Now down towards turn 11. Down the gears, it can be very difficult to get the car turned for this corner, but Galaxy Slayer does it fairly well. Turn 12, almost flat out, and into the last couple corners now. Down the gears, into third for turn 13, and then just slightly getting on the throttle as early as possible for turn 14 without spinning. And to the line comes Galaxy Slayer. It's a 15.3 in the V-carb to start us off, and the Williams of Nick is a 10th behind early on.
It is so good to see these official F1 cars again. That is absolutely glorious. Let's watch these times come in, though. You can see all the new faces. NLR Tom comes over the line. PSF5 champion. We'll talk more about the lineup later on. Alex Marciano has gone fastest so far on a 1:15.2. I'm expecting the pole time to be right around the 1:15 mark, maybe into the 14s. We'll see if there are any faster times to come. There are a lot of drivers that have decided to bail out, still in the pit lane. A lot of drivers who have also invalidated their line. That's Provatox on a 15.8, Lakitu on a 16.6. The only driver for PSF2 with some work to do, and Slash just navigating that first section now. It's very nervy out there, Ghost, and this is something that's going to be a massive theme of this qualifying session. It is so difficult to nail a lap around this circuit, but amplified by the fact that this is the first round. I think other than being a title contender in the later rounds, this is maybe the most nervous these guys are going to be all season long.
Yeah, absolutely. A quick disclaimer, I have great respect for all the PSGL commentators. It was great fun that day. It was great fun. Really enjoyed it. But anyway, yeah, no, it's a great track for qualifying this, I think, because you really have to commit into every single corner. You may not think it's a good a comparison between two tracks, but this track reminds me of Austria a lot in the way that you have to qualify for it, because if you mess up one corner, it pretty much ruins your whole lap, because you have to nail every single part of the track. So yeah, it can be a tricky one, especially at some corners like the last corner, turn 14. If you just get slightly too much on the throttle, a little too trigger happy, you are going straight into the wall. Seen it countless times in league racing in my years of commentating and racing, and I'm sure it's not out of the question to see it today. But these are all very talented drivers, and I'm sure they'll also have that in mind as they go through that last corner, especially on these banker laps. They just want to get something on the board. Maybe we'll see one or two crashes into the wall at turn 14 when they're really sending it towards the end.
Turn 10 also a bit of a hotspot for
Yeah.
crashes, I find, as well on the exit of that incredibly high speed chicane. We've had 11 out of the 20 drivers, also great to have a full grid here, that have set a time so far, and we look forward to the rest of the drivers now getting on to it. IRT has just come over the line to start a lap. We'll get a look at this first sector for the first time, flying in to that turn 1, leaving a bit of margin for error, I think, just making sure this lap is going to be a clean one up towards turn number 3. Hard on the brakes, down into third gear, aggressively rotating the rear end on the way in, a little bit of wheel spin on the way out, navigates the rest of the first sector nice and smoothly. Let's see what the first sector time is going to be. A 26.4. I think you would want it to be around about that 126 flat mark. We did see he was playing it quite safe in that first corner, and I think that is what you are seeing, drivers leaving just a little bit of safety margin. Make sure you get a lap time on the board at Australia. As Ghost mentioned earlier, it is a very tough track for hot lapping. Sieb navigates turns 9 and 10, heading up towards turn 11, a corner that has of course been reprofiled in recent years. Lots of curb on the inside,
Wow.
and I think that did unsettle the car just a little bit. Through turn 12 then, drifting out to the outside slightly, the tyres coming under more strain near the end of the lap. Sieb, tight entry line into that final corner, opens up the DRS and the throttle pedal comes up to the line. Sieb sets a 1:15.7, goes P8 for the time being. Let's see the rest of these times come in.
Yeah, here they come. They're all going to come thick and fast now. This second batch of times. We've also got Spicer, Nick, and Provotox all out on track as Zviadek comes to the line. The driver ahead of him is invalidated, but Zviadek goes P12, actually a 16.0, quite a way off. So he won't be happy with that in the Red Bull. Matisse goes to P3. That's a lot more like it, a 15.3. But Spicer has gone purple in the first sector, Daka. And, well, the man who was always a favourite for pole last season is once again proving himself to be the same again. But Nick has gone purple in sector 2 to respond, and he has invalidated, presumably at turn 10. And so it's all going to be about whether Spicer can unseat Alex Marciano, who has gone a 10th faster in sector 1, can you believe it? So the times are going to start improving very quickly from this point onwards. Spicer through the final corner now, gets on the throttle, pretty much full throttle through the whole corner. Very brave from Spicer, but he's got it round and to the line. It's not quite enough. Just half a tenth down on the Aston Martin, who has lost some time in Sector 2 and has invalidated anyway. So, but now we know he has a lot of time to find in Sector 1.
Yeah, much more potentially for Alex Marciano, just in front of Spicer still. Provotox went into P5. Good lap from the Kick Sauber driver. That was Spyros coming through into position number 5 on a 1:15.4. I'm expecting the times to continue to come down as these drivers dial in their laps more and more. How exciting is the prospect here in the last half of this qualifying session. But Alex's banker lap holding up very, very nicely at this stage. It doesn't look like we have many hot laps on at the moment. And of course, he is one of 7 drivers completely new to PSGL in that Aston Martin, and making a very good statement of himself. The enunciation in my voice was from watching Spicer on the end lap, drifting his way through turn number 11 in most of the final sector. So we are in a bit of a transitional point, I think. But Alex, what an entry into the league. 15-2 at the moment, and so far no one's been able to topple it, but plenty change can still occur.
Yeah, he's looking very strong out there, and that first sector wasn't even purple, so he clearly lost a lot of time in Sector 1 and his banker, which is a little intimidating to those who still haven't beaten him. But Spicer was purple in Sector 1 on his lap. He just didn't quite nail the rest of the lap the same way that Alex Marciano did. So, yeah, intimidating stuff from the newbie, and we'll see if he can carry it on. But, you know, we've got PSGL veterans in this division still this season. Sieb, Matisse, Spyros, Spicer, a big name from last season. The F3 champion, by the way, has, I believe, been promoted to F2. That is NLR Coolman, so we wish him the best of luck there. But yeah, we definitely have the potential for a new PSF3 champion this season.
Certainly so, and in actuality, it's I believe the entire top five in the championship from last season's PSF3 have been promoted to F2, which leaves Spicer as the highest placed drivers in the standings from last season, who finished P6 in the standings. Slash next up in P7. Those drivers suffered quite a lot of heartbreaks throughout last season, so we'll see if there's any change. I was watching Mattia Manga, who had a big snap heading out of turn 10. We haven't seen anyone stacking it in the wall, but we have seen oh dear.
Nope.
What on earth was that for a commentary curse?
Oh,
IRT Nick.
Fleddy, a thousandth of a second
Oh,
off of
wow.
Alex Marciano as he comes across the line for his first run. Fleddy, another name from last season, but yeah, I think Dakar needs to have a bit of an embargo on. Talking about crashes for the rest of this qualifying session. We do apologise, Nick, but there we go. He will take no further part in this one, and we'll see how far he drops, because these times are very, very close at the moment.
Yep, and it's all change. Oh, my embarrassment is not going to leave me for some time, I think, after that one. Uh, Nevertheless, let's concentrate on what is still in store throughout the rest of this session. NL Slash is navigating the last couple of corners, gets a bit out of shape, it must be said, on the entry to that final corner at turn 14. Ghost has mentioned how tough that one is. He crosses the line, does a 1:15.6, but I think there was a lot more potential in that lap. Sieb is behind, but has invalidated the time. Would have been good enough to put him into the third row of the grid, but nothing doing there. It's Triska goes fastest again, just by fractions, goes 7 thousandths of a second faster than Alex Marciano, who is improving himself. So let's see the rest of these times come in. Triska goes to the top of the time sheets, and let's see if anyone else can go through. Of course,
Watch Louis
Triska
Baptiste.
got promoted from F5. Louis Baptiste is in the Haas, coming to the end, does a 15.3, and Alex Marciano goes fastest once again on a 15.1. The times continue to come down, but they are coming in thick and fast. Matisse goes second on a 15.237, so close to the top of the timesheet. Spicer was finding a lot of time in the first two sectors, but has unfortunately invalidated, as I believe Vivarandi is coming up, that has just to start a flying lap. So Alex Marciano improves again. They have just chipped away at his time, Matisse and Triska, but Alex again just staying one step ahead of the rest of the competition. There is still another run to come. At the moment, seems to have an advantage over the rest of the field on pure one lap pace.
Yeah, indeed, and it's so close, this quality at the moment. We saw this last season in PSF3 as well. It was mighty close up and down the field, but wow, less than half a second between the top 14 is something else, even at a track like Australia, where it's all about the margins. But yeah, Alex Marciano proving himself already to be a force to be reckoned with on debut here in PSGL this season. And we'll see if anyone else can match him. Matisse, a surprise into the front row, hadn't really been up there until that lap that he's set. We've only got 3.5 minutes to go. There's time yet for one more lap for everyone, but I do wonder if traffic is going to come into play if they all come out at the same time. Obviously, we've got no collisions on for qualifying in PSGL, but that doesn't mean that a car in front of you isn't going to be distracting, as Moranvi goes to P7 in his Kick Sauber.
You certainly don't want cars getting into your eye line. That can really get in the way of your concentration. These drivers can focus through it to an extent, but yeah, you certainly want some clean air on the track. Of course, the collisions are off to prevent combat slipstreaming, which would make a very big difference, I think, around Australia with some of the massive full throttle sections. So conditions are equal for all the drivers in theory, but yes, obviously traffic can come into it. We are now going to see drivers heading out onto the track. We will see how closely packed they're going to end up being. Lakitu is first up. Lakitu had a really difficult season in PSF2, finishing 25th in the standings despite attending the vast majority of the races. So certainly a driver with something to prove. Will certainly be looking to improve on that 1:16.6 at the moment, some 6 tenths adrift of the next slowest driver, currently in 19th position. There's a bit of pride associated with being up in that big league before in PSF2. So Lakitu, as a contrast to the PSF5 drivers coming up and looking to prove themselves, and the rookies looking to prove themselves, Lakitu comes into this, well, having been established in the past, now has to fight for pride. So 16.6, we'll see if he's able to improve. There's a lot of very hungry drivers following onto the circuit. This is going to be an electric final 2 minutes.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And speaking from bitter experience, Taka, Lakitu could be one of those drivers who is not so good in qualifying, but ramps up the race pace in the race. I found qualifying to be particularly difficult personally the last couple of years of F1 games. Lakitu could be another such driver. So he's coming into turn one now. He's quite a way off the pace at the moment. We'll see if he can get closer in as he goes on to his final run here, using some ERS down to turn one and now down to turn three through the gears. A little bit slidey on the exit there. A little too much oversteer for his liking, I'm sure, but not too bad as he comes to the end of the first sector. It's a 26-1, which is much more like it. So he is a threat, but he's invalidated. An easy place to invalidate that at turn number 6. And that is lap over for Lakitu, and he will stay in either 19th or 20th. And it is going to be 19th because AGK Racing has invalidated his run as well. But now we know Lakitu has got pace. He just hasn't been able to unlock a lap time so far today in PSF3. So keep an eye on him for the race.
The other Aston Martin, though, has certainly been able to unlock qualifying pace and is on another lap, half a tenth of a second up, takes a bit of bikes out the turn end of turn 9, a lot of curb at turn 10, manages to just avoid picking up an invalidation there. You can take a lot of the inside curb. Of course, Alex Marciano then into turn 11, clips a little bit of that red sausage curb. Is that going to halt his momentum? We shall see. A massive over rotation heading through at turn 12, and again on the entry of turn 13, the tyres are almost giving way. He plants the throttle pedal through that final corner, opens up the DRS. It was a scruffy final sector. Was it a fast one though? The answer to that is yes. He improves the marker and sets the stall out for the rest of the drivers to go after. There is no improvement for Spicer nor for Miranvi. Galaxy Slayer is improving. Spyros goes into position number 3. Triska is finding some time out there too. So let's see where everyone is going to stack up. The Haas of Vessel stays in P17. Next up, the kick server Provotox still P10. Tom, the F5 champion, goes into position number 6. Triska up to the line. Where's this one gonna go? It's, oh my goodness! He goes, it says fastest lap on my screen. He is second, with the exact same time as Alex. Into the pits, Galaxy Slayer. Lakitu was invalidated, of course, and AGK Racing invalidate that final lap too. So Alex gets pulled by literally the slimmest of margins. Triska's time is purple on my screen. I don't understand why that is the case, but Alex does get pulled, but what was looking like a very comfortable pull for most of that session ended up coming right down to the wire.
Wow. Brilliant effort from Triska right at the end there. Great pressure lap. And it was just, well, for all intents and purposes, it was enough. But on the day, just not quite. But it is Alex Marciano on pole position with Triska on the front row, a fitting front row, both with the exact same lap time. Matisse and Spyros on row 2, with Fleddy and Tom making up row 3. Then it's the other McLaren of Spicer all the way down in 7th, with Galaxy Slayer, who was purple in sector 2 but invalidated in the last sector, down in 8th. Then it's Moran V. Louis Baptiste rounds up the top 10 with Provotox, Nick, Zviadek, Moikuli, Mattia Manga, Slash, Sieb, Vessel, and then Lakitu all the way at the back after a disappointing quali session, and AGK Racing not able to get a time on the board really either. And, well, clearly all these drivers have pace, Daka, and it's it's sometimes difficult, especially on a track like this, to really show the pace that you've got in qualifying. And unfortunately, for those who didn't manage to show their pace, this is also a tough track to make up those positions that you may feel that you deserve. So, yeah, a lot of work to do for those at the back, but I've seen plenty of incidents and plenty of fantastic overtakes alike in Australia many times before. So, yeah, it's far from over.
It certainly is far from over. We have 29 laps of this circuit to contend with later on. I have just seen in the chat, Nick. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He is cursing my commentator's curse, which yes, I will. I will not get over that for some time. I have had a few in my time, but that was one of the worst. It must be said. Um, but let's look forward to the Grand Prix anyway, as we get some very creative ways of retiring from some of the drivers in our mock race start in the background of the screen. Talking racing, we of course this is the F1 game. We talk endlessly about DRS and the role it plays in this race. This track is quite unique in that regard. It has 4 DRS zones in total, but they are both double DRS zones. So they are origin. The origin is one single detection point, which opens up DRS zones for both turns 1 into turn 3 and also into turns 9 and 11 further along the lap. Now, I'm not a fan of this. I don't believe you are either. But how much does that affect the way you have to approach wheel-to-wheel racing at this circuit?
Yeah, it's a less egregious one than Hungary for me, just because with Hungary there's a real chance down to turn three, or turn two if you've gotten a good exit out of one. But if you don't have the DRS, it makes it very difficult. But in Australia, if you've got past into turn one, there's not really a point at which to put a detection point that works. I mean, you could put it right on the exit of the corner, and then the car behind has DRS. But on a track like this where it's so difficult to overtake, at the best of times, especially in a big DRS train. If you've made the move into turn one, you probably deserve the position. And it's such a short run down to turn three that there's still a chance for the car behind if they really send it to the inside. So, yeah, a less egregious one, but, still. It would be preferable if the car behind got another go of the DRS down to turn three after being overtaken. But I think the main overtaking spot really on this circuit is the run to turn nine. You're going to see plenty down to there, and I think turn one's going to be less influential in terms of overtakes, certainly than that other straight. So. Yeah, keep an eye down to turn nine, and there could be some pretty crazy side-by-side moments through the 9-10 chicane. So yeah, that's definitely the hot spot for this track.
Yeah, it is the. I'm 100% sure almost that it is the longest full throttle section on the track. DRS doesn't make up the whole length of the straight, but it is probably, I agree with you, the most clear cut overtaking opportunity. Louis has gone out of the session. Thankfully, this is a decent opportunity to get him back in. Hopefully, we keep the connection issues in this session to a minimum going forward. But yeah, I'm looking forward to how that DRS game is going to affect the race. Strategy-wise, it tends to be quite split. We take quite a lot of pride in predicting what tyres we're going to start on. This one seems like a bit of a toss-up between the hards and the mediums from what I've seen. Either strategy seems fairly viable around here.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's more of a toss-up, this one. It depends on what the driver feels like is going to happen. We have a full grid today, so if a driver thinks, oh, there's bound to be an early incident, then they may start on the mediums. But if a driver's confident in the rest of the grid, and confident in their ability to stay with the mediums early on, then they may prefer to start on the hards, and then they'll be better later on. But if there is an early safety car, anyone who starts on mediums has a huge advantage. So Yeah, it's all about basically whether the drivers trust the rest of the grid for me. But we shall see. I'm sure there'll be a split. By the way, Nick says in the chat to watch his comeback if we don't jinx him. So it's, you know, all the pressure's on Nick. All eyes are on you now. Um, so if you don't come back, then, well, that message is definitely going to be quoted in the chat.
um, just just for good faith, I'm just going to say, because I seem to be cursed tonight, that you're not going to have a very fortunate race. Um, and manifesting that the opposite happens. Anyway, while we have a bit of downtime, I'm going to give a quick word for PSGL's sponsors, that being GT Omega. A link to their site is in the video description. I am currently sitting in one of their extremely well designed chairs. If you decide to purchase any of their delightful products, then you can use the code PSGL at checkout for a 5% discount. We are also partnered with Sim Racing Centre, or SRC for short. If you're in need of setups or coaching on the F1 game, SRC is just the place to look. They are also in that video description. They have a 10% discount on all their products at the checkout, also using the code PSGL. Right, we should be hopefully fairly quick turning things around, then we can get into the action that we so love here at Melbourne. We have talked strategy, we've talked the way that these drivers, the way that the DRS can affect the wheel to wheel racing around this track. One thing I do want to mention is how well some of the drivers who have come from backgrounds other than PSF2 or PSF3 from last season have stepped up so far. You see a few of those old faces, Matisse, Spyros, Fleddy being up there, but you're seeing Alex, who is completely new to PSGL, and Triska, who was 8th place in PSF5 on that front row. It does show, especially around this circuit in terms of one lap pace, there is no driver that could be ruled out here for at any point during this season, I think.
Yep, 100%. When the grid is this close, as it was last season, it's so hard to call every single race because all it takes is one battle to go wrong and a different driver's going to win. Or just one driver to have a track that they prefer. And often, favored tracks can produce somewhat small margins of difference. But when the grid is this close, those small margins really add up. And you'll usually see if a driver is midfield for most of the season, that sort of area, and then suddenly they're going for pole position and the win. It's clearly they really like this track. And we did see that a couple times last season. So yeah, interested to see when those are going to come around and whether maybe this is just a very good track for Alex Marciano. Maybe he's going to be up there all season. We don't know yet, and that's the beauty of a rookie having such a good debut. It's unpredictable for the following weeks.
We now look to get loaded in to the action. One thing we haven't really mentioned, Australia does have quite a high probability of rain. We'll see as we do indeed load in if I'm going to be proven right or wrong in that regard. Oh my goodness,
Oh.
that is not just light drizzle. That is very substantial rain, and well, that is going to throw quite a spanner into the works because the drivers that we saw fast over one lap, you can throw a lot of that out the window. That form guide will surely not translate one for one into the race.
Nope, absolutely not. And wet weather in this game is quite a different beast to many other F1 titles. It kind of it feels like you are driving a boat. Like it just feels like you have four-wheel drive and the whole car is sliding around every single corner. So yeah, the handling in the wet is tricky around here, and it can often have startling effects on different drivers' pace. So we'll see who rises to the top in the rainy weather here in Melbourne.
I've had one commentator's curse and one gospel prediction. I think that's me back on form for this round. Let's get forward though, because we should only be seconds out. Everyone, I imagine, will be starting on full wets, not intermediates. It is pouring it down. We will see, of course, if the conditions are going to adjust themselves. And for me, commentating PSF3 wet races, I don't know if I've ever seen one. It is not something that we see very much of in this tier, at least as of late. So this is going to change things up. A lot of these drivers, in fact, pretty much all of them, from my eyes, are pretty much unknown quantities in the wet. The complexion of this event has been changed no end. I'm not quite sure why we haven't got ourselves onto the grid yet. I hope the lobby is still okay. It's been a while since we've had a major lobby issue. I know we've had a couple of drivers who have struggled a bit with connection, so we'll see how this is going to unfold. We'll keep an eye on the chat, or the paddock, as we like to call it. But so far, not a whole lot of movement. I hope this lobby is going to hold up.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I'm not seeing a lot in the Discord chat at the moment, so uh, I do wonder what's going on. Maybe a lobby issue, maybe it's going to be a reset, but I'm sure the I think it's Nick who's hosting the lobby, and he got this underway very, very quickly, so it shouldn't be too much of a bother if we do have to reset. I don't know if the weather they also reset the weather in
Here
that.
we go.
Oh, we're going. Here we go.
Here we go, lights coming on for the first round of PSF3 Season 38. It is underway. Alex Marciano leads the grid from the front as Triska follows, and everyone plunges into the spray with Alex Marciano leading and converting that pole position towards turn one, with the Alpine driver following. The rest of them follow in that spray. Triska pulls out the slipstream, tries to get alongside Alex. They're joking for that race lead as they pull away from the rest. Alex covers off that first position ahead of Triska. Then Matisse comes next in the Ferraris. They all go side by side through turn three, several cars abreast, but of course, from our point of view, you can barely see a thing. I saw Viver Ranby running a little bit wide through turn number 4, kicking out the rear end. Another fresh from Nick, who hits the wall, heading out of turn 5. Has he got away without damage? I'm not sure. They're going to get onto the throttle pedal yet again, heading out of turn 6 and 7, with Alex converting that pole position. Indeed, in the midfield, they are still fighting away. Nick and Zweidegger side by side towards turn 9 still in this full throttle section towards a very, very dangerous section of the track with nothing to choose between them on the entry. Then Zweidegger trying to hold it all the way around the outside, gets pinched to the inside of turn 10, has to yield. The rest of the drivers seem to be fairly in shape, but Triska going for the race lead outside of turn 12, almost overshoots the top two, almost coming together, and Triska does get the race lead away from Alex Marciano, gets in front, kicks out the rear end. It is appalling conditions out there, but the drivers seem to be managing okay, with Triska now leading.
Yeah, full wets across the board. No one chancing on the inters, so it's clearly here to stay, this heavy rain, as Trisco also drops the rear on the exit of turn 14. Does get into the lead, though, and it's a great first lap for me. It was a great first lap all round. I was riding on board with the middle of the grid, and everyone was keeping it very, very clean. A couple of moments for a few people, but nothing too spectacular. So very, very well done by PSF3 in these appalling conditions, as Nick goes down the inside of Moranvi for turn 3. Moranvi has the inside for 4, though, and wide goes Nick on the exit, but not much either driver could do with the huge amounts of understeer they're going to have with these full wet tyres. And well, I imagine the track limits penalties are going to come thick and fast today. Galaxy Slayer fighting with the two McLarens, as well as Spyros just up ahead. Spicer looking to get his way past Tom, perhaps down towards turn 9, but that would be very, very risky to go side by side through there as teammates, and they duly go in single file through the turn 9-10 chicane. But look how close these three drivers are going down towards turn 12. Can Tom send one down the inside? Yes, he can for turn 12. It's going to be close, but Spyros shuts the door expertly. Does go a little wide. Tom might feel a little aggrieved by that, but I think it's all in good faith there as they head through the last few corners in the same order.
Wow, this looks grueling, and we're only coming to the end of lap number 2, with Triska now leading and Alex all over him, heading down the main straight. There's no need to hold back because there is no DRS, no gamesmanship to had. It is just pure all-out racing. Look at how close Fleddy is too to Matisse. He's come so close to a race win last season. We'll be looking for one this season. Look, goes to the inside of the Ferrari, heading towards turn 3 later on the brakes. Can he get that one stopped and turned in? Yes, he can. Very nicely done. Fleddy moves up into the podium places and will try and chase down our 2 front row starters and current race leaders out there on the track, with Matisse now following in that Ferrari and Spyros holding up the McLaren still behind. Overtaking certainly more difficult now, but these guys doing a good job of following as you follow in the wake of the car in front. Tom gets a better run than Spyros, who goes into the grass down this straight. He goes on to that overtake button. Tom looking to the outside, nothing doing there. I think you do not want to send one here, so Tom is going to remain patient. Nick and Vimaranvi are still going to go through. Nick does get through eventually into that P9, but you're seeing how much more difficult DRS is making the racing. These drivers are really having to work for their overtakes.
Yeah, they really are. There's fantastic stuff. Nick making his way through. He's up 3 positions from the start, but it just underlines how ridiculously clean the start to this race has been. I mean, barely anyone gaining or losing any more than 1 position in the first 3 laps. The worst start in the field, though, has been Louis Baptiste. He's down 5 after starting P10. He's down to 15th right now as Triska into the lead. Nearly a second he is ahead of Alex at this stage. Now over a second, but only briefly. It was due to a mistake, and Alex gets by him. It was a horrible exit through turn 2 for Triska, and Alex back into the lead just as he was starting to pull away from the Aston Martin, and it's game on once again, as now this has allowed Fleddy to catch up to the top 2 and Matisse there as well. Spyros a little way back, but I don't think we've seen any particular driver with a particular liking or disliking to the wet yet. Everyone seems to be in pretty much single file for now.
They're acquitting themselves well this grid, it must be said. Excellent driving standards. Of course, we are only 3.5 laps in, so we'll see how the rest of the race evolves. The McLarens are battling it out. Spyros getting a great run on Tom and sweeps round the outside to take away that 6th possession. And the McLarens, who have been locked together all night, do eventually swap places. Spicer up to P6, gets a great run through the chicane too, and is going to be challenging Spyros too. Is he going to go to the outside towards 11? Spyros parks the car in the middle of the track. Spicer goes to the inside line, brakes a little bit later, goes a little bit deeper, forces him very, very wide, and that may be looked at in the stewards room, I think, as Spyros goes backwards, loses not 1, 2, but 3 places down to P number 8. Now has Nick all over him, he has Probatox all over him, and behind Zviadek and Vimaranvi, the Red Bull and the Kick Sauber are going at it too. Further back in the order, things are starting to get a little bit more heated out there on the track, as Probatox and Nick were in a very unusual position down the main straight. They do seem to have resorted themselves. I know that Probatox has had a couple of connection issues. He gets a run though on Spyros, who is having to defend constantly throughout this race. He's got 2 cars all over him. Heading into turn number 3, Probatox is forced right to the outer reaches of the track, tries to find a move into turn 4. There's contact between the 2 cars. Probatox forced again over the inside curve, but cannot get through on Spyros, who still absolutely tenaciously holds on to that possession number 8, parking the car right in the middle of the road. Probatox getting better runs, and Spyros, if anything, if there is a driver who's struggling a bit with the wet conditions, it does seem to be the Red Bull man. Probatox all over him. I do think Spyros was hard done by on that last lap, and that definitely knocked the rhythm, but he is under constant pressure in these early laps.
IRT Nick with heavy front wing damage, by the way, Daka. After that long exchange between these 3 drivers, he's got no front left end plate on that Williams as Providox goes for the move on the outside of Spyros. This is very risky. We saw what happened to Spyros at this corner on the outside last lap, but Providox gets through. Spyros leaves him the room, and Providox up to P8. It's been a great few laps for the Kick Sauber driver, and especially in that huge kerfuffle at that corner when Spyros got sent wide. It was beautiful opportunistic driving from both Providox and Nick to find their way, pick their way through all the cars going wheel to wheel as Spiros acted as a bit of a barrier to all the cars behind, but Provotox reaping the rewards, and Nick, even with that front wing damage, getting past the Red Bull, up to P9 he goes, and in fact Spiros looks like he's yielding to his teammate through turn 3, as Viadek up to P10 as well, as there's battles further behind. Again, Spiros loses another position. He is in free fall right now in that Red Bull, and Moikuli looking to find his way through as well, but not quite on this occasion as they all file through Sector 2 now. It's still Alex Marciano in the lead. He's just over a second ahead of Triska, but that gap staying relatively constant at the moment.
We've talked about in this game how easy it can be to follow, but in the wet that does become a lot more tricky as you are in the spray. Very little visibility. You can see the battling as Nick tries it on Sviatek. Actually, Sviatek, I think, moving through on the inside of turn number 9, gets through, and Nick loses a lot of momentum. Now it's Vi Moranvi for company, heading in towards turn number 11. A little bit later on the brakes for Vi Moranvi, squeezes Nick right to the outer reaches of the track, but the Williams hangs firm and goes around the outside of turn 12. Keeps a hold of that 10th position, but Vi Moranvi sends another lunge, this time into the penultimate corner at turn 13. The two cars touch very slightly. Vi Moranvi all over the road as Moikuli tries to find a way through, gets a slightly better exit off of that final corner, but the straight line speed advantage goes to Vi Moranvi with the slipstream of the man in front of him, so he remains in P11. Update on the cars in front: Spicer has got through on Matisse while all that was happening, and Tom is pressuring too on the other McLarens. These McLarens seem to be combining pretty well and are on the move. Spicer up 3 places in this race, up to 4th, and now they're going to try and hunt down the top 3.
Moranvi sent it again for turn 3 on the inside of Nick, and this time there was major contact. They both went wide, but Moikuli couldn't do anything to pick his way through. They were both blocking the road in front, and look how much time they've lost to Sviadek. This has cost both drivers, in fact all the drivers behind Nick, so dearly. It's 3 seconds now, the gap to Sviadek. Moranvi needs to make this move, and he knows it, but he just can't do it. Nick's straight line speed is too strong. He's using all his ERS as the kick Sauber driver, and he cannot find a way through down to turn 9, and again he has to stick behind, and the front wing damaged Williams is proving to be a real roadblock here. Here comes the kick Sauber again to the outside, but look at the straight line speed in the second phase of the straight from the Williams. There's nothing that Moranvi can do.
It's like watching Alex Albon in real life F1. There is no one that can compete with that kind of straight line speed. Nick, though, you could see the lack of downforce playing against him, and Moranvi must be growing so frustrated, and growing is the gap to the cars in front. But we have pit stops. Look at this. Nick does come in. I imagine that front wing damage being such a burden. Moikuli has come in as well. I haven't seen much change in the conditions. We'll see if anyone does go for the intermediate. Slash is in too on the same lap as his teammate, who's having a wing change. Maybe not the best wisdom there for Slash. Maybe you could see it. It is intermediates for Moikuli. Wets for Nick, who gets off of that front wing damage. Slash going for the wets. Moikuli is the driver to watch at this stage in the race, as Triska, the second place driver, gets a 3-second time penalty. You mentioned the danger of track limit penalties, especially in these wet conditions, and Triska, who has been running up front and was leading the race earlier, falling foul of that. Louis Baptiste as well. Many track limit penalties have been picked up, but I'm watching Moikuli right now, currently in P19 on those intermediate tyres. How do they adapt to the conditions? Compared to Nick in front, it doesn't look too bad. I believe Nick has actually stayed out, and I'm not sure if he has actually fixed that front wing damage. It doesn't look like he has. So Nick staying out there, and Moikuli able to keep up and actually pressurise the Williams in front then. So those inters, it's early days, but they seem to be working decently in these conditions so far.
Spiros and Moranvi still going wheel to wheel further ahead for P10, but Spiros stays ahead for now, and well, Moranvi is got to be sick of seeing the rear wing of a car ahead now by this point. Oh, big contact up ahead. Matisse is round. Oh, and Provotox sweeps his way into the pit lane. I think took out a bit of Sviadek's front wing as he went, but there was certainly debris flying up, but I don't know if it was just visual, but there's certainly damage damage to the kick Sauber, and Provotox, after such a brilliant start or first stint to this race, into the pits for damage and for a new set of wet tyres, and that is a disaster for him. I'm not sure what happened. I just cut to Matisse and Provotox going very, very slowly and blocking all the cars behind them, so there must have been contact. But yeah, real shame. And now Matisse 2 seconds behind Galaxy Slayer. And just a word on the top two, Daka. It's now 2.5 seconds the gap, and Triska must be thinking, what if I didn't make that mistake into turn one? Because he's watching that gap creep up and up and up. And if he'd stayed ahead of Alex, it would have been a real struggle for the Aston Martin to overtake him, and he might still be in the lead of this race. But as it is, the Aston Martin, the rookie to PSGL, is in command of this Australian Grand Prix.
And second place, Triska is under all sorts of pressure from Fleddy too. He did not get a good run through turn 11 and now has the Mercedes all over his rear wing. Watch Moy Cooley, he's just gone through a Provotox. The intermediates seem to be working. Let's see if anyone's going to gamble so far. I don't think there's much of a difference in the tyres, and of course a lot of these drivers will want to try and get the most out of those wets. Spicer has joined the fun too, as Triska's pace seems to have fallen off a cliff in the last couple of laps. The lap times are coming down, and Spicer very fast behind. Triska throwing so much entry speed into turn one and paying the price on the exits. Viadek has decided to come in. He did pick up damage on the last lap. Fleddy though, is he lining up? Triska breaks a little bit earlier, and Triska, despite the rear locking on the entry, manages to get the car stopped and turned in, but he's hemorrhaging time to Alex Marciano. The gap now 3.5 seconds, and the pole setter currently on his way. Fleddy trying to get her on towards turn number 6, gets alongside Triska. Triska has to yield. Through goes Fleddy after another mistake from Triska, slipping him back. I'd have thought the wets have good durability, but these guys seem to be struggling. Triska is trying to fight it back. He does have plenty of battery, lining it up, but he's got to watch out for Spicer too. Spicer going to the outside. Huge run from the McLaren. Gets to the outside of turn number 9. Can he complete the move? The answer to that is yes. Through goes Spicer into P3 and looking for another. What a display of driving from Spicer. He pulls alongside RT Fleddy, and it's gonna be position number 2. Spicer gets 2 cars in just a couple of corners, runs it in a little bit deep though, but Fleddy cannot find a way to get back. So Alex now 4 seconds up in front, but Spicer getting 2 in 1 lap. Fleddy, he was on the move, but he had to yield then after Spicer got such a good run. He has looked like one of the faster cars in these conditions. Now he's got a chance to try and show it, but Alex is gone at the moment. 4.5 seconds. That's a gap that's very tough to bridge.
Louis Baptiste with a spin at turn 12 as well in the Haas, so further down for him. It's not been a good race. Welcome to the last season's PSF3 runner-up as well, Finley, in the chat. He's asking what Triska's penalty is. It's 3 seconds at the moment, Finley. He is at the front, but Spicer up into P2 now, 4.5 seconds to Alex Marciano. I'm going to keep an eye on that gap, see if it starts coming down now that Spicer's ahead, because Triska was really struggling. Louis Baptiste into the pits and strapping on another set of the wet tyres, and Provotox, by the way, has gone on to the Inters. I think that was another pit stop from him, or maybe it was the same one from the previous lap, but yeah, he's chanced it for the green-walled intermediates, but it still looks very heavy rain out there.
Yes, indeed, and the wets do seem to still be working decently. Moy Cooley's progress on the intermediates has been good, but he isn't so much faster that it's really worth it switching over and giving up a pit stop as Nick has gone round. Oh, it has been such a disastrous evening for IRT Nick and for Williams as a whole, really. He did come in for a second time, as has Provotox. Those two are a long way adrift of the rest of the field, and we're hoping for good fortune later on. So we head further along now, on to lap number 12, with Alex leading in the gap to Spicer, holding pretty steady on that lap, around about 4.5 seconds. Fleddy trying to stay within range as Louis picks up another penalty. Louis Baptiste has 12 seconds of track limit penalties. That is an astonishing amount at this stage. It means that even if the race comes together with courtesy of a safety car, it's going to leave the Haas driver in very little of a better state. With 12 seconds of penalties. The drivers up front, with the exception of Triska, have managed to keep it quite clean as Vimoranvi is trying to line up. Spyros can't quite find a way through. Spyros remains in P8. These guys behind Matisse have been cut adrift, so we are finally seeing who has really taken to these wet weather conditions and who has struggled with it, as Louis does retire in the pit lane. The race taking a turn for the worse for the Haas, so he will take no further part in this Australian Grand Prix. We have our first retirement of the season. That is from Louis. A couple of drivers have had really disastrous nights. Well, one driver has had an absolutely glorious night. Alex leads Spicer, though, that pace. He certainly doesn't seem to be any slower than Alex, it must be said. Spicer, who has been a constant fixture near the front of PSF3 for the last season and a bit. Nick also deciding to bring the race to a conclusion in the pit lane. So the race proving too much for some drivers, but Alex and Spicer, well, those drivers, they look absolutely at home in these conditions.
Yeah, Spicer's already gapped Fleddy by over a second, and you're right, he's not really catching Alex, but he's not losing time to him either, unlike the cars behind him. So it seems to be those two in a class of their own at the moment in these conditions, and Spicer proving it with the fastest lap. Matisse dives into the pit lane, an early stop, presumably for another set of the wet tyres, but I'll keep an eye on him as he comes in.
Oh no.
No, it's intermediates for the Ferrari, and well, that's a big call considering where he was. He was in with a great chance of points. I don't think he has time penalties either, so he was doing very well. Huge gamble for Matisse. We'll see if it pays off. I'll ride on board with him for a while, Daka, and keep you updated on how it's going as he comes out just ahead of Swiatek, but Swiatek's going to be back at him all around the outside of turn 2, just about keeps his foot in. Very brave from the Red Bull, and it's going to be the inside for turn 3. Not much Matisse can do about that, and round they go, and it's Swiatek up to P15, but yeah, I'll keep an eye on Matisse for a little while and let you know how he's getting on.
One thing that does interest me is that he's about 3 seconds behind Moy Cooley, who's been running on those intermediates for some time and was some way behind Matisse on the track when he came in. So I don't think the intermediates are a bad tyre at this stage in the race, and we are of course approaching half distance, around about where you would expect to see some pit stops, but most of the leaders deciding to remain on the wet tyres for the time being. I imagine they'll be very interested in Matisse's progress. At the moment he can follow Swiatek, but doesn't seem to have a major grip advantage. The Inters maybe not quite clearing the water exactly as they want to, but we are getting some pit stops. Spyros, Vimaranvi, Vessel, let's see what tyres these guys are going to opt for. Is it going to be intermediate tyres? It doesn't look like it for Spyros. He goes on to a fresh set of wets, but in Varanvi goes on to the wets as well, as does Vessel. So it seems like that's the prevailing strategy call. So Matisse, you could say, maybe the braver of the drivers, and that also does suggest the fact that these guys have gone to the wets. These conditions aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, and they've come out just ahead of the Ferrari. Oh no, it's disaster for Vessel as he comes out just as Swiatek was turning in for turn 1, and that was a big bit of contact. Vessel sent spinning out at turn 1. Not much he could really do about that. He was on the inside, and well, that is one for the stewards, I think. Fleddy, the next victim of track limits, up there in P3, so not a good break for him. But yeah, Matisse still just about managing at the moment on those inters. The wets, by the way, in terms of wear, on average they're around 40% for the ones who haven't pitted yet. So definitely some pit stops coming in, but I do wonder if they're staying out this long to see if the rain gets any better, if the dry line starts getting more and more suited for the intermediates. Matisse isn't doing badly. I think the tyres are fairly equal at the moment, but I don't know if it's going to get any better or worse for the inters as the weather progresses.
At the moment, I haven't seen any change in the conditions at all throughout the distance of this race. Not sure if that will change. Lakitu does come in. I think this is going to be a bit of a fun game to see what tyres these guys are all going to opt for. Lakitu, with very little to lose in this race, does go for the wet tyres, and so will emerge I imagine some way behind most of the cars running, maybe around about where Slash is, who's been on those wets for some time. Lakitu will be out, I think, just in front of Slash on fresh wets, which I think, these guys, they are used to the wets. They don't expect the conditions to change much. That's my impression anyway. So the intermediate seems like much more of a gamble, and Matisse has slowly been dropped by Zviadek and has slowly been reeled in by Vessel, the recovering Haas driver, up behind him now, as Provatox, though, does set the fastest lap of the race on intermediate. So I think it depends on your adaptability, really, and your driving style. There doesn't seem to be much difference in the performance of the tyres. I think it is just going to come down to personal preference. There doesn't seem to be one hard or fast rule here.
Here comes Vessel going for the Ferrari of Matisse round the outside for turn 9. Is he going to get it done? It looks like it. Matisse has to yield, and Vessel using that ERS to full effect, and he's back up to 13th after being spun out by the car. Now right ahead of him on track, Zviadek, and this is going to be a little bit of a grudge for the Haas driver to get past him, but through they go. A couple of drivers from the top runners in the pits, Tom and Triska, both opting for the wet tyres. So
Sieb enters.
Sieb, though, onto the inters. So yeah, you're right, Dakia. I really do think it's just personal preference of driving style and how good they feel the drier line is for the intermediates. But yeah, it's very much touch and go out there in terms of tyres as Sieb comes out right with Vessel as they come through turn 1, and Vessel would have been having a bit of deja vu there, but from the other end of the track as they go into turn 3. Vessel stays ahead, but Sieb's going to have a brilliant switchback through turn 3, but it's not going to be enough for turn 4, and here comes Matisse trying to take advantage around the outside, but he has to yield as Provatox retires in the pit lane. What a great start he had in the Kick Sauber, but it's all gone wrong from around about 8 laps ago, I think, is when it first went wrong for him.
Yeah, Provatox no longer in this Grand Prix. Most of the leaders still remaining out there. Spicer, though, does come in. Spicer pits now. He was beginning to fall back from Alex, thinking he needs to try and get off those tyres, maybe try and use that as an opportunity to move up. What's the call going to be? It is going to be wets. That, again, most drivers opting to try and stick with what they know. My, oh my, this is such a test of these drivers. Mattia Manga follows into the pits too, some distance back. The McLaren driver is going to get onto that throttle pedal. Triska, who came in a lap ago, emerging. Can he get in front? Spicer's going to be way in front of Triska. In fact, look at that. He did get away from Triska earlier on. Now is some 2.5 seconds up with a lap fresher tyres. So Spicer's now going to get on to the move. Can he pressure Alex? You can see now, further down the order, Mattia Manga comes out just in front of Vessel. Vessel is in pit exit battles all throughout this race. He tries to get onto the curb out of turn 2 for a run towards turn number 3, and watch Sieb too. Sieb coming down the outside. They're 3 abreast on the entry. Sieb very, very late on the brakes. Can he get that stopped? Yes, he can. What a move from IRT Sieb. Maybe those intermediates are coming into their own. That was stunning. Vessel has to yield. Mattia Manga, well, thrown right into the deep end, coming out of the pits. IRT Sieb, such bravery to go round the outside of 2 cars there. Stunning stuff.
And Vessel very wide at turn 5, and Mattia Manga taking full advantage and getting through. He put 2 wheels on the grass to make the overtake, but he made it work. And, well, yeah, we don't need to see another 12 laps. That is move of the race done and dusted from Sieb, as Fleddy now takes the lead because Alex Marciano has come into the pits and he's gone onto the wets. Where is Enelar Spicer? He's just coming around the final corner, so Alex is going to be well ahead. Here's Galaxy Slayer, though. Could there be contact to turn 1? Alex very sensibly backs straight out of that one. He's got enough of a lead and he knows it, so he's perfectly willing to lose a couple seconds to avoid a crash at turn 1 on the pit exit. But yeah, pit exit proving to be a very spicy section of the track so far this race.
There is that pinch point on the apex of turn 1, very tricky for cars coming out of the pits lanes. Weimar Hanvi in P8 getting very interested on the position of the RB in front of him of Moy Cooley in P7. His intermediates are far older and probably far less grippy. Vessel is battling away once again with Mattia Manga, who's on the outside of turn number 4, sticks it out there, does the Haas. That's going to give him the inside line for 5, but Mattia Manga does not yield, and they touch on the exit. Mattia Manga oversteers into Vessel somehow. somehow neither of them drop it, and Vessel does get the place, but doesn't get as good an exit as Mattia Manga, and Matisse is in there behind on the intermediates too. So is Lakitu. A fight for a positions outside of the points, but you never know how the race could evolve in the final 11 or 12 laps. Looks like Vessel is going to come out first out of that fight, but certainly had to work for it and nearly had his race ended there as Vaimarambi does get through on Moikuli. Maybe that early pit stop, it did work out at first, but is that going to work against him further along the race as Alex Marciano does get through on Galaxy Slayer? He did lose a few seconds to Spicer though. Spicer did come a little bit closer, so Galaxy Slayer getting in the way a little bit of Alex Marciano, still trying to stick it out there on those wets, as is Fleddy. So those drivers holding much more faith in the wets. They couldn't extend all the way to the end, could they?
I mean, I'm looking at the wear on Galaxy Slayer's tyres. It's not impossible, but goodness me, it would be a one heck of a run if they did manage to extend those tyres all the way to the end. They'd definitely be in puncture territory, I'll tell you that right now. But yeah, that would be quite the gamble. But you know what? It's the first race of the season. It's a good time to put a gamble out there. You don't lose that much at this stage. There's plenty of time left in the season to make up for a poor strategy decision today. So that might be what they're going for. Fleddy's 9 seconds in front of Alex Marciano, so you know it's certainly the idea is in their heads, I'm sure, at this stage. But Fleddy does have a 3-second time penalty, and he comes into the pits. Oh dear, what a shame. But no, probably the sensible decision. Is Galaxy Slayer going to follow him in? Nope. Galaxy Slayer stays out again for a 20th lap on those tyres. We'll see if it works out for him. Fleddy out on the wet tyres. Where's he going to be, though? It's Spicer's just coming through. Fleddy out the pits now. Here's Triska coming down to turn 1. He's just ahead of him, and NLR Tom is behind. So Fleddy slots into P5 for now as he goes chasing after the front runners with much better tyres at this stage, but he does have a 3-second penalty to contend with.
And he did sacrifice quite a lot of track position by staying out longer. Triska getting out in front. Sviatek and Moikuli are battling side by side through turn number 2. Moikuli doesn't quite have the momentum of Sviatek, who gets through in the Red Bull up into position number 8. And Moikuli does not have the grip to battle on the brakes. I think his tyres are starting to suffer a bit more than the rest. Spyros in behind then in the second Red Bull car, trying to get through Spicer and Galaxy Slayer going side by side down the run towards turn 9. Spicer does get through, the gap just teetering under 4 seconds. He's not going to give it up, and of course if Alex Marciano picks up a penalty, then this is right on at the moment. Alex has, aside from losing out to Triska in the opening couple of laps, has led this race very, very comfortably, but Spicer is going to apply all the pressure he possibly can. He is spinning up the rear tyres heading out of turn 11, runs off the road at turn 12, so really, really pushing, trying to apply that pressure. Alex has a lap fresher tyres though, and is keeping him at arm's length. We'll keep an eye on this as to how that battle between the two drivers who have been the class of the field in these conditions does pan out, but Galaxy Slayer does come in. There will be no stops. Galaxy Slayer comes in for a short final stint. We'll see where he emerges. We'll see what he can do with it in the closing laps.
Yeah, Matisse with another time penalty further back. Galaxy Slayer out on the wet tyres, so only a few drivers opting for the inters as Galaxy Slayer out the pits now, is just behind Sviatek, and behind his teammate as well. He exits, very close, and Spyro sneaks around the outside of turn 1. Very nicely done from the Red Bull. Galaxy Slayer P10 on the exit, but he doesn't have a time penalty compared to the 2 cars ahead of him, so he's in a net P8 right now, and well, on debut, that wouldn't be too bad at all. Lakitu and Matisse going wheel to wheel through turn number 3, meanwhile. Not for points, but still definitely for pride, as Lakitu up to 14th, and, well, Matisse, what a horror show it's been for him, for the man who started this race on the front row, down in 15th place now, and doesn't look like he's going to get any points out of this one.
From P7 to P15, it is almost like a DRS train, though. I cannot believe how close these drivers have remained throughout the course of this Australian Grand Prix. Viadec does lead these guys, though. He does have older tyres. He does not have a time penalty. So, well, certainly pros and cons for his possession. Moikuli trying to stay with him, and Spyros trying to hone his way in as Alex Marciano and Spicer trade the fastest laps. That is a great show of driving skill between these guys, going all at it. 128.5 from Spicer, the fastest lap. He's doing all he can, but these two are so evenly matched in terms of pace in these conditions. But ultimately, the massive advantage in track position for Alex Marciano swings the battle in his favour for the moment. Can Spicer do anything else if they are so well matched in terms of raw speed? Spicer, Spicer drops it! Spicer drops it on the exit of turn 5, spins up the rear tyres. VSC is deployed. There's no front wing left on the McLaren. Just as I was talking about an immense display from both these guys, did Spicer get a little too ambitious? Turn 5 is a corner. It's almost nothing in the dry, but so treacherous in the wet, and it has finally caught out one of our drivers and one of our stars of this race, NLR Spicer. How punishing is this going to turn out to be if the VSE stays out for long enough for him to get to the pits? It might not be such a disaster, but nevertheless, a massive blow to Spicer's chances. Was driving such a brilliant race up to this point, but that just shows how quickly it can all turn.
NLR Tom now, his teammate in the other McLaren, is on for a potential podium now because of Fleddy's penalty. Spicer, if he pits, he'll come out well behind them, and he'll pretty much be out of the battle for the podium. And Moy Cooley with a drive-through down in P8 as well, so that's him out the points too. That'll promote Sieb into P10. On track, and Vessel will be on for points too.
Spicer
stays out. He stays out with no front wing. He thinks he can get this to the end to another 7 laps without losing too much time. He's 3 seconds ahead of Triska. It is in the wet, so it is a little less punishing, but a full front wing, surely not. He loses a second in turn 1 and 2, and that is a poor decision, I feel, from NLR Spicer. Like I said, though, this is the time, if you're going to do a gamble, you want to do it on round 1, but still, this is a bit of a gamble too far, surely, from the man who, well, last season we always expected him to be within a shot of pole. Here comes Triska down the inside, and yeah, easy move for the Alpine, and Spicer's going to drop many places now when he does pit, and wow, I can't believe he has stayed out there.
That is unfathomably bold from Spicer, but yeah, I do think it will work against him. Fleddy coming very quickly in that Mercedes, and just look at the difference in downforce heading through turns 9 and 10. Fleddy closes right up. He was 1.5 seconds behind before the chicane. Now he is on the rear wing of the McLaren. Spicer still trying to defend. He is fighting tooth and nail. You can't fault him for passion, that's for sure, but surely this is a battle that cannot be won. He is going to frustrate Fleddy. Fleddy runs into the back of him. Did the Mercedes pick up damage? He's missing an end plate. Spicer runs off the road at turn 12. Fleddy getting a bit too close to the slower car and has front wing damage himself. Now NLR Tom, what a debut in PSF3 it could be for the F5 champion. Spicer does pit. I would say coming to his senses. Maybe he was trying to help Tom. I don't think he intentionally damaged Fleddy's front wing. I should say that explicitly. But Spicer does come in, puts on intermediate tyres. I do wonder if that was the motivation of that strategy call. Nevertheless, he will fall well outside the points. We'll see if he has a few laps to claw back that train in front of him. But Spicer, yeah, very unusual strategy call, and a race that was looking like an almost dream scenario. Now he runs well outside the points.
I mean, he lost at least 10 seconds from staying out that extra lap, and look how far behind the chasing pack he is, 7.5. He would have been in front. He probably would have been about where Spyros is, and he would have been on fresh tyres with a fresh front wing and, you know, a lot of motivation. And now he's in 13th with no chance of points. It's a baffling decision. It really is. I don't like to clown on driver strategy calls. It's so hard to get strategy right out there when you're driving and concentrating on the road. I am infamous for poor strategy calls when I'm driving. But Yeah, that is really baffling, that one. Alex Marciano sets the fastest lap as he looks to get maximum points on debut here in PSF3. Pole position, fastest lap, and the win. And, well, he's 12 seconds ahead of Trisket. It would take an almighty bottle for him to lose this one. And, well, Spicer, goodness me, he is going to be ruining this race later on. It is early in the season, like I said, but still, what a waste.
It is, and well, let's not forget Spicer. He was the driver out of all of the returning drivers from PSF3 who finished the highest in the standings. We are expecting Spicer to be right up there this season, and on terms of pace, you cannot disagree with that. But yeah, that could be very valuable points lost for NLR Spicer. He will try and get involved, and of course, there are cars in front that do have time penalties. Mattia Manga has 9 seconds of penalties. Sieb and Spyros also with time penalties, and Matisse retires from the race in the pit lane. Yet another driver to add to that list. So we'll see if Spicer can salvage something with fresh intermediates. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. He would have been, at the very least, in the mix with those cars in front. And yeah, set back quite substantially. Maybe it was to help Tom, who is all but guaranteed a podium if he can just keep it within the lines here. But and even with a shot of P2 potentially. But yeah, Spicer, that is quite extraordinary what has happened in this race. We haven't talked about this man too much. Perhaps because such action has been happening in behind, and actually we may have to cut away because Sieb is all over the back of Vessel heading into the final sector. Doesn't get through. I will try and get a word in for you, Alex, I promise, because you are so far out in front and you have driven such a peerless race up to this point. Of course, close margins in qualifying was literally no margin in front of Triska. Lost the lead to Triska in the early laps and has come under pressure from Spicer in the second half of this race, but has just shrugged off all of that and is heading home. Of course, maybe I shouldn't be saying this with my record tonight, but 14 seconds in front looks very, very solid, and I think the main attraction could well be the fight for that lower points paying position. Spyros, Vessel and Sieb, oh so close. Heading into turn number 3, there are still battles to be had in these final laps.
Well, after we were talking about Lakitu being sort of rear of the grid fodder for this race at least, here he is, 1.6 seconds behind this pack in front of him, but with 2 of them having time penalties, actually 3 of them because Spyros there as well. Lakitu's looking at 2 points here if he can keep this together, and if they keep battling, it'll bring him even closer. Sieb going for a move on Vessel, but actually backing out towards turn 9 and choosing to live to fight another day, it seems. Through turns 9 and 10, they go a little bit squirrely on the exit for the Mercedes, but nothing to write home about as he looks to the inside of turn 11. He sends it down the inside of the Haas, and they go wheel to wheel for the next corner as well. And it's going to be Sieb who makes the move from absolutely nowhere. Vessel cannot have been expecting that, surely. And, well, he knows that Sieb has the penalty, so maybe he didn't defend quite as vigorously as he otherwise would. But even so, that is a bold move from the Mercedes, and it's given Vessel a terrible last sector, giving Mattia an opportunity, but Vessel holds firm with the straight line speed down to turn 1 and stays in that P10 position. A little squirm out of turn 2 though is going to give the Alpine another chance perhaps, but again Mattia yields, and Vessel, well, a net P8, but even so, he can only clap his hands in the cockpit for that overtake from Sieb.
Oh, he gets a massive slide at a turn 5, but I must say, IRT Sieb, he is going to be very highly featured on this race's highlight reel. 2 stunning moves that I have caught with my own eyes, and God knows how many more. Maybe there was one from Tom as he goes round the outside of turn 9 on Fleddy. Fleddy immediately tries to fight it back, but what can he do with front wing damage? Can he lunge just as his teammate just did? Tom is later on the brakes, more confident. He has more downforce to work with, and now has 3rd place by right. In terms of the penalty for Triska, he's 1.5 seconds adrift with 2 laps. It is going to be a tall order, but NLR Tom into the podium places and will try for all of his worth to chase down that gap to Triska up in front, who is doing all he can to maintain that second place. Some 15 seconds off the lead, but still fighting. Sieb is going for another move, gets through on Spyros towards turn 13, and Spyros, with aging tyres, has to yield that one. Vessel is trying to follow through, gets slightly better purchase from the rear wheels heading out of that final corner, tucks right into the slipstream, but there's going to be no way through. Up in front, Galaxy Slayer has gone towards Viadek, who gets all out of shape heading out of turn number 1, manages to hold on to the cars. His teammate Spyros does the same, and up alongside goes Vessel. Vessel trying to pounce in the Haas, gets through, and Mattia Manga trying to follow through too. The Alpine lines up the inside line, breaks a little bit later. The Haas in front slides on the entry. Spyros is out wide onto the curb, but he does hold on at least to position number 10, at least momentarily, as Mattia Manga fights back round the outside of turn 5, gets into position number 10. We have seen some absolutely stunning overtakes tonight, and that is another one to add to the list from Mattia Manga. Well, in the wet can make wheel-to-wheel racing more difficult, but that has not stopped these drivers from putting on a show, and Spyros wants to continue that show himself, going towards the outside towards turn number 9, but he's still half a car length behind as they reach the corner, and Mattia Manga much more confident on the entry. Has he compromised his exit though? Spyros unable to quite take advantage. Lakitu is all over the both of them. Can he find a way through then, as Spyros gets a run towards turn number 11, goes to the inside. Mattia Manga trying to break as late as possible on the outside. He's forced right onto the curb by the Red Bull, and Spyros will get in front. Lakitu will try and follow through and will do so on Mattia Manga, who now comes under pressure from Spicer. Spicer lunges from a mile back, hitting into turn 13, gets massively squirrely on exit, has to yield for the time being. His grippy intermediate tyres are working to good effect as he spins up the rear wheels, heading out the final corner, trying to salvage whatever he can from this race, lining up a turn 1 move, decides to hang back for the time being. It is only for 12 plays, but these guys on the final lap are not backing down. Mattia Manga trying to hold that one, but Spicer gets to the right hand side. That'll be the inside line for turn 3, and surely the place for the McLaren man. What can he do in the rest of the lap? I think we will look further up the road though, because Alex Marciano, it has been peerless. It was pole position by the slimmest of margins. He has come under pressure throughout this race, but not very much, it has to be said. He is going to win this race by an absolutely gargantuan margin of over 20 seconds with penalties applied. Alex Marciano punches out of the final corner on debut. PSF3 has another new winner to kick off season 38. Alex Marciano did not put her foot wrong all night long. Triska heading home from, I believe, the lower end of the top 10 in PSF 5, and he has done enough to resist NLR Tom on the run to the line. Triska comes through in position number 2, and Tom will complete the podium.
Can Spicer break Lakitu's heart? Sorry, towards the back. Spicer looking to get the final point, and does on the penultimate corner. Lakitu loses the point that he was looking for, and Spicer up to P11. He'll get it on penalties after Spyros crosses the line. Sieb finishes P9 in the end. No, P10. Spicer gets him as well. Up to 9th place for the McLaren after his calamitous strategy decision after his spin earlier on. And Lakitu, with 2 corners to go, he was on for a debut point in PSF3, and he ends up P12. That is got to be gutting.
I think he did a burnout after getting overtaken.
Yeah.
In actuality, looking the fact that Sieb finished 1.2 seconds behind Spicer in the end, maybe that point was still a possibility. We just wait for Moy Cooley to come over the line, but nevertheless, that is going to bring an end to our first race of the season, and I must say, I think wet weather can often actually detract from the racing experience on the F1 game, but that certainly was not the case tonight. That was a brilliant display of driving from our grid, and some absolutely awe-inspiring wheel-to-wheel battles. I know it's cliche, but if that is a precursor, a sign of things to come for the rest of the season, oh, I cannot wait to see it.
Yeah, as far as season openers go, that was a classic. Heavy rain. You think, oh well. Usually we get quite good racing in Australia, paradoxically, compared to how it usually is in real life. But in league racing, it's usually pretty good, especially now with that chicane having been gone for a few years in the middle sector. But as soon as the rain came in, it was interesting. We haven't had a wet race in F3 for a long, long time, but. Yeah, you thought, maybe it'll put a dampener on the racing. Absolutely not. Fantastic racing up and down the grid all race long. It was brilliant to watch, and I'm sure it was great fun to drive as well for all our drivers.
Yes, and probably none more so than Alex Marciano, who takes the win. Pole position, fastest lap. It does not get any better than that. Triska holds on to second place, resists NLR Tom, with a great comeback drive. Fleddy rounds out the fourth place for Moranvi, then Galaxy Slayer, Zviadek, Vessel, Spicer, and Seab rounds out your points finishers. Then Spyros, Lakita, Mattia Manga, Slash, and Moikuli, your finishers. Then Matisse, AJK Racing, Provatox, Nick, and Louis Baptiste, the rest of the grid, not able to see the checkered flag in the end. So that brings to an end the first round of season 38 PSF3. That was a scorcher in the torrential rain of Albert Park. Well, I cannot wait for what the rest of the season is going to have to offer. And the question is, of course, we haven't seen really much of Alex Marciano before coming in to this league, but absolutely, utterly dominating that entire session, only briefly coming under pressure at certain points throughout that. I guess the question is going forward, how can the rest stop him? It's still early days, but that was an imperious performance.
It certainly was. Apparently, his teammate Lakitu ran out of fuel at the end. Somehow, in
Oh,
a full wet race, he's run out of fuel. But yeah, that'll be why he finished so far down in the end. But yeah, no, imperious performance from Alex Marciano. No one was catching him today. Spicer was fairly close on raw pace, but even he couldn't keep it up over the whole race. He was losing a lot of time towards the end of the first stint, and then of course the ill-fated spin and wall crash at turn 5. But yeah, no one was his equal, and like you say, Alex Marciano has got a target on his back now for the rest of this season. Maximum points from today, and well, we'll see if he can keep it up.
I'm not sure. I'll have to double check, but I don't believe that happened at all last season. I think that race winners, double checking, yes, there were, of course, some race winners that got the fastest lap, some race winners that got pole position throughout last season in PSF3, but no one got the Grand Slam of pole position, fastest lap, and the race when he nearly led every lap too. It was an absolutely masterful performance. So we'll see if anyone is able to step up to the plate in the future. There is, of course, a lot of season left in front of us, so and a very wide variety of tracks on the calendar here. So you never know how things are going to unfold in future rounds. But yeah, Alex Marciano making a statement in this opening round. I suppose we will look forward to the rest of the season with the next round coming to you from Texas, COTA. That's the American Grand Prix. Do not miss that. That will be in just a week's time. For the PS tiers, that will be I believe October 28th. I can still do maths. So make sure to tune in for that one. Also, give a quick final word to our sponsors, GT Omega and SRC. All links to their sites are in the description, and yeah, look for your discounts at the checkout using the code PSGL. Right, I'm going to come to you, Ghost, after a barnstorming opener to our season 38 of PSF3. Do you have any final words and reflection for what we saw tonight?
Well, like you say, it's cliche, but I really hope that is a sign of things to come. Some fantastic racing, brilliant overtakes in heavy rain conditions. Some of the moves that, especially Sieb, pulled off. I think he was my driver of the day personally, just for the overtakes he pulled off. But yeah, I think brilliant, brilliant race. Brilliant fun to watch. It must have been great fun to drive as well. Or maybe some drivers would disagree. I know there are plenty of drivers who are not fans of the rain, but it's at least got to be a good one to drive that one, apart from the ones who DNF'd. But yeah, we head to Kota next week. Which is another technical track. You wouldn't expect it, but it is a technical track, especially in qualifying, and race pace can often be quite different to qualifying pace, particularly as the tyres start to wear at Kota. So I think that's going to be one thing to watch out for next week. Who can keep the pace up towards the ends of their stints, and who's going to fall off from the pack and have to stop early. So yeah, that's, I think, going to be the story to watch out for next week, as well as who can catch Alex Marciano. Is he going to be unstoppable this season, or is that just a flash in the pan for him here in Australia? And for the rest of the season, it's not going to be so easy. I am very excited to find out.
So many questions to answer, and we will only get the answers to some of those questions in the next race, and we will, of course, uncoil that mystery of PSF3 throughout the remainder of this championship. So make sure not to miss any of it. It's going to be a cracker all the way from beginning to end. But I think that is going to put round one of season 38 of PSF3 in the books. So thank you all very much for watching. Thank you, Ghost, for being alongside me as always. As always, a pleasure to work with you. And
And you?
yes, I think that yes, thank you very much. So I think that is going to bring this to an end. Make sure to tune in a week's time for the US Grand Prix in Austin. So for myself and Ghost, it is goodbye for now, and until next time, we'll see you later.